From Hebron in the West Bank, we're now joined via Zoom by Akram Natsheh, who's a Palestinian journalist. Thank you so much for joining us and welcome to the program.
Thank you, sir.
Our condolences to the journalism community in Palestine. This must still be a shock for many of you to see someone of such repute who's contributed so much to journalism for such a long time to have died in this way.
Sure, we feel that who's next now? This is the question between journalist community. It's deep. Hopeless. It's deep injury in our hearts to lose our iconic colleague Shireen Abu Akleh. To be honest, she was one of the most important. If she was not the most important in Palestine, the TV journalist, she was brave. She was. Or she is brave, I could say, and all journalists, all of our colleagues, we learn a lot from people now in Palestine, in all the Arab countries. They feel very, very sad because they see Palestine through Shireen's eyes. They feel Palestine through voice of. So it was not just killing for a journalist. It's not just for a killing for one who was talking about Palestine. It's a kill of a whole heritage and a whole feeling for mass of people, for millions of people who are following and see Palestine, see what does the occupation do in Palestine, all of gens, all of killing, all of sieging, all of pulling people to jails, prisoners' family who are through journalists, through especially through Shireen. All of these people are very sad. Family of murderers, family of victims who were killed by Israeli occupation are very, very sad. So feeling through Palestine, through journalists community is very deep. Now, as journalists, we feel fear and say, who's next? Who will be the next to be killed, to be shot, to be violated by Israeli occupation forces? So this morning there was a clashes in Jenin camp, and many of our colleagues were sieged a building, and Israeli occupation army the building, and they were almost to be shot or to be injured by the Israeli occupation. And in West Bank of Hebron now, this morning also settler attacked the journalists. So Israel now feel that there is no price to pay when they are killing and they are violating journalists. So I think if they did not pay a true price, their violation, their killing for Palestinian journalists will raise. So and they will kill more, they will violate more, they will they will close more journalists, Palestinian journalists. We could say we are facing and we are suffering from many sides of violation against media, and all of Palestinian journalists were attacked, have been violated by Israeli forces, by the action. All of us have been violated. No one works in the field have not been violated and have not been injured or have been not arrested. So the first kind of violation is by the Israel is in the field, like what happened with Shireen and our colleagues, and they are closing many studios or many channel or many organization or company, production company, and local radio station have been closed. Many of our colleagues are in the Israeli jail in the article of administrative detention. This kind of detention by occupation force is without any kind of judgment. It's just they take the journalist or they take the Palestinian and put them in the jail for 6 months, for a year, for 2 years, for many years sometimes, without any kind of judgment and without any kind of court, without any accusation. And many of have 20 journalists in the Israeli jail are under administrative arrest, and we don't know. No one knows why they are suffering. Why are they still in the Israeli jail till now? And each year they take more and more journalists according to emergency law since the British mandate. So we as journalists think that Israel doesn't pay a price. Last year, like it's the first memorial, they make sky attack and they demolished the towers where AB, Al Jazeera, and many media institution in the buildings in Al Jawhara and in Burj Al Shawa, and many local radio station and many media institution were located in Gaza, and they have been fired and they demolished all the buildings. So they have limit against violation against the Palestinian journalists and against all the Palestinian community.
From what you're saying, it sounds really difficult to be a journalist, particularly if you're Palestinian. I hear that the Palestinian journalists that might be attached to international organizations such as Al Jazeera and AP may get things like accreditation, but local journalists, local publications suffer greatly in trying to get some kind of recognition to be able to do their work.
Unfortunately, Israel doesn't recognize any kind of Palestinian journalist, even with a national organization or international media agency or with the local media agency. They don't look for the Palestinian as a human in the beginning. That's the source problem. They don't look at me as a human being. So how will deal with me as a journalist? So the first, I hope that Israel deal with me, that Israel recognize me as a human being, has rights, has a human rights. They don't just like that. They deal with some kind of a creature, and they have to us to accept the occupation and to live under the occupation. Unfortunately, they don't. So how will they recognize us as a journalist? So unfortunately, Israel don't. Even Shireen Abu Akleh working with Al Jazeera, which is the biggest Arabic platform or the biggest Arabic institution. So that does not ban Israel to kill her in the moment and say, no, it's not us, because they want to evade from assassination. So that's what happened. wanted to violate Palestinian journalists, even they work with local or international media agencies. Sometimes there is some credit, there is some leverage, let's say, for the journalists who are working international media agency, but in the ground, in the battle, inside the battle, there is no kind of a protection, just only how a soldier estimate the situation and what they will do. By the way, they look more danger that Al Jazeera and all international media platforms, that they are more the danger, and on the Israeli, more the local media institution, because they see that the international media platforms that expose Israel happens anyway. The local media institution, the local media radio or platforms, they are talking to Palestinians who are really know what happens in Palestine. They are live under the occupation and they know what happened every day. So they are just following the local media institutions, just following what is happening on the ground. But talking about the international media agencies, Israel say no, it's have more danger, because they can expose, they can see through Al Jazeera all the way, can see what's happening in Palestine through the international news agency, but they can't see what's happening in Palestine through any local TV or local radio station. So don't leave any analyst, even from local or international. By the way, Palestinian journalist syndicates and many human rights organizations and international also human rights organization, they are every year let's say they record hundreds of violations against freedom of journalists by the occupation. So it's not related to local or to international. Let's say there is more a problem for local journalists who are more poor. The organization doesn't have any fund. They don't have any they don't have any kind of support from the international community. But it means that doesn't mean that Israel does not kill or does not violate the people or journalists who are working with international media agency.
Akram, we're going to have to leave it there, but thank you very much indeed for sharing your thoughts with us about the challenges that journalists are facing in Palestine. That was Akram Natsheh, who was speaking to us from Hebron in the West Bank, and sharing some really harrowing stories about how difficult it is to be a journalist in Palestine, and saying that the Israeli authorities don't see him as a person, as a human being, and therefore how can they possibly see him as a journalist?